How much do you value relationship? As I've said previously, relationship is the most important thing I believe there is on the planet Earth. First, our relationship with God, then our relationship with our family and other people. As Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, body, strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. And so that pretty much covers everybody and everything. Unfortunately, relationship also comes with lots of opportunities for conflict, because when you have different personalities involved, people see things different, people react different. We bring all of our baggage into our relationships. We learn how to deal with conflict and trouble in ways that are sometimes inappropriate or not very well thought out. We model the way our parents dealt with relationship conflicts as well. And so it takes a little effort on our part. It's not something that's going to just come natural. I want to talk in this session and the next session about resolving conflict in a very positive way. And I want to draw from some information that has been around for a good while, and that is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I think he really hit on some really good principles, especially when it comes to conflict resolution. The fourth habit in that series is called Think Win-Win. I want to talk about that for a minute. Think win-win. What does that really mean? Well, if you think about it, in today's society, not too many people think win-win. They tend to think win-lose. We live in a world and a society to where, nobody wants to come out on the bottom. Either on the top or you're a flop. And, there's not much to be said for losing an argument, losing a fight, losing a game, losing anything for that matter. And so usually when we go into a situation to where there is possible conflict, we want to come out the winner. And if we come out the winner, that means there's going to be a loser. Another way of entering conflict, and you really would not think that this actually happens very often, but it really does, and that is think, lose, win. And what does that look like really? Well, it means that pretty much we have this defeatist attitude, that we have decided already before we even go into the conflict that, we're going to be the loser. And we kind of take on this victim status situation to where we're like, this is what always happens to me. Everybody always gets the upper hand. I always end up being the doormat. I just resolve myself to the fact that I'm going to be the loser, and that's the way it's going to be. And, when you're in a relationship with somebody and that's the way you think, like you start to get into a situation with your spouse, and, immediately you take on this victim stance. Well, okay, that's the way it always is, so I'm just going to go ahead and cave. Well, you may tell yourself that you're actually doing something good because you're allowing the other person to win. But really, every time you do that, you're basically re-emphasizing to yourself that you have less value, or you're less than, or that somebody else has the upper hand on you, and that's the way it's always going to be. And that creates frustration, and it creates a negative attitude, and it could be bitterness and resentment involved. Anytime we got these kind of negative emotions going on inside of us, eventually those things are going to come out somehow or another. We may internalize them and stuff them inside of ourself, and just not really say much about it, but you could end up being very passive aggressive, where maybe you don't have angry outbursts, or you don't say things that are hurtful in that sort of way, as far as loud and boisterous, but you figure out little ways to get your spouse back maybe. Or maybe you are that person who has who continues to stuff those feelings until finally some little something comes along. It becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back, and you end up blowing up like a volcano. I remember a good friend of mine was talking to me one time about his wife, and he said, she will just stuff things inside of herself until she finally gets to the place, he said, to where her words seem to me more like regurgitation. It's like she just vomits words on me. And I remember thinking to myself, what a horrible picture that is, but that's so often what happens, because the vileness and that infection that's been inside of you that comes from feeling like that you don't have a voice, or maybe you're not valued or respected or loved like you should be, and then finally it comes out in a way that is really very ugly. And so think, lose, win is not a great thing. You may tell yourself that you're doing somebody a favor, but you're really not. Covey talks about think, win, win. So how do you think, win, win? What does that look like, really? So I want to give you an example. All of this is clearly hypothetical, okay? Because I don't have two boys, and my wife's mother's already passed away and gone on to heaven. But I'm going to give you an example right here. So let's say that I have two sons, and that for the last almost a year, we have been planning this trip to Michigan. And we all three fish, and we love to fish. And we have heard about all the beautiful lakes up in Michigan and all those weird fish that they don't have in Missouri. And we know where we're going to go and what we're going to do. And we've been picking out bait and getting our fishing stuff ready. And we're planning this trip, and we're excited about it. Okay. And let's say that my wife's mother lives down in South Texas, and she's not been feeling well, and she's getting up in age. And and they're not able to travel to see us much. And my wife comes to me and she says, Gary, my mom is not in that great a health, and I don't know how many more years I'm going to be able to be around her. And, we don't get that much vacation time. I know you guys have been planning this trip to Michigan, but is there any way that we could change plans and go to South Texas and so that I could spend some time with my mom? Okay, now we got an opportunity for some conflict. I could enter into that situation with a win-lose mindset. I could enter into that situation very easily by saying, you know what? The highway runs both ways from South Texas to Missouri. And, there's plenty of opportunity. She knows people that could bring her up here if she wants to see us. And we've been planning this trip, and we are excited about it. We've got things all worked out, and there is no way in the world that I am planning on changing everything that I've been looking forward to just so you can go down and spend time with your mom. And so you are going to Michigan, and you're going to love it, and you're going to have a great time, and that's the way it's going to be. There it is, win-lose. I win, she loses. Now, are we going to get a divorce over it? Probably not. Okay, but how is my wife going to feel? She's going to feel like her feelings are not validated, and that she is not really important, and that her wishes just are not as concerning as my own selfish desires. So let's look at it another way. Let's look at a lose-win situation here. Okay, so I look at her and I say, babe, I don't even know why I plan anything, to be quite honest, because very rarely do I ever get my way. And so, this is just one more instance where, I put my hopes into something and it comes up short. But yeah, I know that you're more important than a fishing trip. So yeah, no doubt, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that trip to Michigan. And we will go down there, and we're going to be miserable the entire time we're there. But don't worry about it. You're going to get your way, and that's all that really matters. Okay, so there's a lose-win. Wow, that didn't sound too great either, did it? Okay, so how's that going to work out? Well, I'm going to be resentful. I'm going to be feeling like I don't really matter. I'm going be lodging all these thoughts and attitudes in the back of my brain, and it's going to build up. I'm going to be keeping score as to how I get treated and how that I'm not very high on the totem pole. And you know what? As I've said in previous videos, when you get those frustration and those feelings of anxiety and feeling less than, you start feeling entitled, like you deserve something better than what you got. And that's usually where self-gratification comes in too. So there could be some drug or alcohol use, pornography use, something like that could come out of that. But let's look at one more scenario, the win-win. Okay, so let me look at that. How in the world, I've asked people before, what would make a difference in this situation? And oftentimes the word that comes up is compromise. Compromise. But I don't really like that word compromise much, because even when you compromise, you still give up something. And so when you give up something, you lose something, right? And but here's the one thing. Let's say that I tell my wife, you know what, babe? You're right. You haven't seen your mom in a good long while. And I know we've been planning to go on this trip to Michigan, but Michigan's always going to be there. And I'm going to tell you something, South Texas has got some of the best black bass fishing there ever was on the planet. And, we'll just change our plans this time, and we'll plan on going next time. Now, that sounds like a compromise. But let me tell you what makes the difference and what makes that not a compromise is one thing. And that is, how much do I value the relationship? Is relationship more important than anything else? If I look at that as an opportunity to be a blessing to my wife, if I look at it as an opportunity to invest in our relationship, if I put people in front of projects, I recognize the fact that relationship is the most important thing on the planet, and it's way more important than a trip that I could put off 1 year. And so it's really how I value the relationship that makes it not a compromise. Because when you compromise, really you're looking at what you're losing. But when I value the relationship, I'm looking at what I can give. And so instead of being a taker, I'm a giver. And, and there's a lot of joy in knowing that I am blessing my wife, that I am fulfilling something in her life, and I am still going to get to do a lot of the same things that I was going to do before, and I still have something to look forward to. And it's not going to make me feel like I'm less than or that I'm losing something, but I actually have been able to give something. And so the value of the relationship is what changes the whole perspective. So there's a little something for you. Now, when we come back together next time, we're gonna do a little role play, and I'm gonna show you a very, very powerful tool in resolving conflict that if people were to use it, there would be so many less divorces and so many less children out on the streets running from their parents, etc. And so I hope you'll be with me on that next journey. Okay, so this is Straightforward Therapeutics. Progress, not perfection. That's what we're shooting for. I look forward to seeing you next time. God bless.